Hey y'all, I'm back with another video. I know it's been a little minute, but I was a little busy getting married and then we went on our honeymoon to Hawaii. So it's just been a lot going on. Like this week I had to get back into the swing of things, so I didn't really have too much time to record. And actually right now it is almost 11 p.m. here. And I'm recording this video because I love y'all. So my name is Deandra Vaughn. If you are new here, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you stick around. And of course, if you're not new here, then welcome back to the Clique. So in my last recap video of The Ultimatum Season 2, we left off on episode 6. And so now we're just gonna pick right back up where we left off with episode 7. So this episode starts off, it's the beginning of the second trial marriages, so everyone is back with their original partners. And Tonio and Roxanne are doing well so far. He got her some flowers. She felt really cared about and appreciated, so that made her happy. And then shortly after that, things go left per usual. She's like, well, I mean, my mind still hasn't really changed about marriage. And Antonio was like, but I mean, I thought you said Alex opened up your mind. And she says, I mean, yeah, he opened my mind up, but I still feel like marriage just takes away from the look of independence. And I was like, the fact that she actually said that it takes away the look of independence lets me know that for her, it really is all about the look. Because, girl, what are you talking about? Like, marriage does not make you any less independent. Let's be for real. Antonio says, you know, to me, married people actually have more credibility, they're more trustworthy, and she's just like, yeah. That's pretty much it for that convo. So then we move over to Alex and Kat. They're talking and he asks her, like, you know, what do you want me to work on? And she basically is just saying that she wishes that he was more vulnerable with his emotions. And she's like, you don't have to be tough all the time. And he says, well, I kind of feel like I do have to be tough all the time because you are like so timid and you're so passive. She tells him that she still questions if he loves her sometimes, and he doesn't really understand why, because he feels like he does so much for her. But essentially, she wants like verbal confirmation. And I think this is just like a difference in their love languages. And that's why it's so important to not only understand your own love language, but also understand your partner's love language. Because you might think that you are showing them love based on how you perceive love or how you like to receive love. But if you're not giving them the love in their own love language, they're not going to really perceive it in that way. So you kind of have to have both. Like, you have to let your partner know how you like to be loved and what you like that'll show you love, but you also have to reciprocate that and learn what makes them feel loved as well. He feels like she doesn't do the little actions to let him know, like, you know, she's thinking of him. So they're just not on the same page when it comes to that. So Ryan and James are on their date. He picked out their outfits and he's, you know, feeling really good about it because they're matching and it is really cute. But then Ryan like completely ruins the moment because she's like, actually, I wore this sweater on me and Trey's date. I'm like, girl, this is not the time, sis. She's like, yeah, me and Trey used to match all the time and it was never planned. Like, it just used to happen naturally. And that was like definitely her throwing shade at James, because James actually like picked out her outfit to force them to match. Yeah, I don't know if she was trying to make him jealous or what, but of course he gets a little mad at this and he asks her to just not bring up things that she and Trey did. She says she doesn't know how much she's actually grown in the process, but she's grown a lot and she wants them to understand how important this is. And she's also afraid that he's going to resent her if he doesn't get his dream job that he's always wanted. And he tells her, you know, I just want you. I just want a future with you. I'm not worried about all that stuff. And she says, I mean, that sounds good, but you're going to have to prove it to me. As be your top priority or it's gonna be over. And I'm like, I know that's right. So Raya and Trey are now talking and they're still pretty tense. Like, he's like, come on, come sit closer to me. They're sitting on the couch. He's like, come sit closer to me on the couch. And she's just not feeling it. She tells him that she still needs space, and she's just struggling to move past him saying that he had feelings for someone else, aka Ryan. And he's just acting like he doesn't get it. I mean, he's saying, you know, I caught feelings for her, but I never lost feelings for you. Like, I still loved you the whole time. And it's like, okay, that's not the point. Like, I know you still loved me, but you still had romantic feelings for another person. Like, why would that not make her feel bad? You saying that you always loved her, didn't change your feelings for her, doesn't make her feel any better, because you've shared your feelings now. Like, now she doesn't have all of your heart or all your feelings, because now you've given them a little bit to somebody else. She's like, you know, you still felt something for someone else, and that just hurts me. She feels like he never really asked her how she pictures marriage or like what she wants out of a marriage. And he acknowledges that they haven't really had conversations about kids or anything, or how they're going to raise the kids. I'm just like, why have y'all never talked about this? Like, how long have y'all been together? It's been like a couple years for them, I think. And y'all have not talked about those serious topics. Like, that's very weird. She says, you know, I want to live in this city for a year. And he absolutely does not want to do that. He's like, I don't want to live in the city at all. I don't want to really move too far away from my family. I don't want to start my own family in the city. Like, they're just on two different pages. She says that she just wants the experience of being able to walk and get food. Like, she's never really experienced like a walkable city like that. And I feel her on that, because I would also love to experience like being able to walk to different areas without having to get in the car. The city that I live in is not really a walkable city, but whenever like my husband and I go to cities that are walkable cities to visit, it's very, very nice. So I can see why she would want to experience that. But he just feels like, why would I take the risk of giving up my good job and my good life to live in the city for a year? He thinks that she should go live in the city now, get it out the way, while he works on getting their family house together. And then when their year is up, then she can move into the house. She says she doesn't want to do long distance, so that's not going to work. It just sounds like they're just not on the same page. Like, they're both very stubborn. They both want what they want, and neither one of them really wants to compromise. They talk about how they feel like they're always compromising, and to me, they just might not be that compatible. They even said they might not be compatible, and I'm like, yeah, I agree. They're just two completely different people. So now Alex and Kat are meeting up with Kat's friends, and they're just kind of grilling him. They're like, okay, do you want my girl or not? You gonna marry her or what? And he does not give them a straight answer, which is not surprising, because that's Alex and that's what Alex does. He talks around in circles, never really gets to an answer, and then they just straight up are like, okay, but is she the one for you? And he literally could not answer that question. And it's like, girl, if you don't leave this man, like, Kat, please just leave him. Roxanne and Antonio are in their apartment, and Roxanne is like, you know, cuddling with her cat, and she's like, oh, I love you to the cat. And his back was turned. He was in the kitchen, and he's like, who are you talking to? I think he thought like she might have been talking to him, but absolutely not. And then so he tries to say I love you to her, and she just says and he's like, can I get a I love you too? And she's just like, I mean, I'm not gonna say things I don't mean just because you say it. And he says, you don't mean it. And she's like, well, not in the moment. Like, I don't mean it in the moment. It's like, girl, what do you mean? Shouldn't you love him all the time? Like, doesn't matter the moment? Like, me and Zach say we love each other all the time. Like, randomly. I'm the main one that's always like, I love you, baby. I love you, baby. And he always says, I love you too. Like, I don't even understand that. And it just seems like she doesn't really love him in that way. Like, I don't really see that with her. I think she cares about him a lot, but she's not in love with him. Like, she's just not. He says he just needs to hear how she feels about him, and she just kind of brushes him off, and she makes a joke about like, oh, I'm just gonna put my feet in your lap, ha ha ha. And it did not land. He didn't laugh at all. He tells her he just doesn't feel like he's good enough for her, and he feels like they have a different level of respect for each other. And I'm like, well, is that not what Antonio tried to tell you? Like, I'm pretty sure he tried to tell you that she doesn't respect you, and you acted like he was making stuff up. And here you are now talking about they don't have the same level of respect for each other. That's why you should have listened. She's like, I mean, you've heard of like sports leagues, right? Like, oh my gosh. Like, basically saying that he's not in her league at all. She's like, I'm just in a different era of my life. You know, I've been working longer. Like, she's trying to fix it up to make it sound a little bit better. And she's like, but I mean, if you want to date someone that's in a different league, then you should date a 20-year-old. Like, don't date me. Like, if you want to date somebody that's more like you need to date somebody younger, because I'm not the one. Then he talks to the cameras and he's just like, yeah, she's just saying things that she doesn't mean. She doesn't actually think that she's out of my league. And it's like, oh my god, like, how much clearer can she be? Like, he is just completely in denial about her, and it's actually kind of tragic, because that's literally what she's saying. Like, she's been saying it throughout the entire show, that she kind of feels like she's better than you, and she kind of feels like you are not on her level, and that's why she doesn't want to marry you. Like, essentially, that's why she doesn't want to marry you, and you might just need to let it go. So James and Ryan are having an argument that went on for like hours, basically, about something about like her talking with her hands, and it triggered him from his childhood with his mom. And I'm just like, babe, you need to get some therapy, because that would help you unpack this stuff so much. And that stuff has to be worked through before you and Ryan can really get anywhere, because that's literally how trauma works. Like, it comes out in your relationships, and you have to address them. Like, you can't just avoid them while you are trying to build something with someone. Like, it doesn't work. And Ryan even says, like, I feel like you need more than I can actually give you, aka you need some counseling. But we'll see if he actually ends up getting it. So Ryan and Trey are meeting with Raya's sister, and you know, they're catching her up, and they're telling her, you know, Raya has been crying a lot lately. Trey says that he doesn't open up to many people, but he was able to open up to Ryan, which led to him catching feelings. And Raya's sister is immediately like, catching feelings? And you could just tell she was like annoyed right when he said that. But, you know, she does acknowledge that she appreciates that he's honest and being open, and she respects that. She asks if they love each other, and she's actually kind of surprised when they say yes. And I'm just like, your sister doesn't know that you love this person, and y'all have been together for, again, 2 years? It just doesn't make any sense to me. She's like, oh, that's the first time I've heard y'all say that. I didn't know y'all were like lovey-dovey. And I'm like, they're a couple. Like, what do you mean? What are these people be doing? So we found out that they also have like some issues with like their sexual chemistry in the relationship, which was new. We hadn't really heard much about that. So he like gets up and excuses himself immediately when they started talking about this, because he didn't want no parts. So that was kind of funny. So James and Ryan are talking, and he finally is trying to open up to her a little bit about his childhood. So he says, you know, that his dad died when he was 2, and his mom like wasn't really around much. So he felt like he had no one to talk to, essentially. He shares with her that he started to participate in self-harm behaviors to punish himself for not being good enough or not living up to like the standards that his dad set, which was very sad. And he says that, you know, that carried over into their relationship, because he's like, if I can't be good enough for my mom and dad, how could I be good enough for you? And she like immediately breaks down and starts to cry. He tells her he loves her more than anything, and he's always known that he wanted to marry her, but he was just scared. She says, that she's sad because he was going through all this for all this time, and she just had no idea, and she just wants to be there for him, and she doesn't want to make him feel like he's not good enough. He says he's done hiding stuff from her, which is good. So, they made a pretty big breakthrough in this conversation, so they just got to kind of continue to work through those things in therapy. Alright, so that was episode 7, so now we can just slide right into episode 8. Ryan and James are meeting with his mom now, and she asked him if he's more ready now than when they first began the experience to actually get married. And he says yes. She says that she thinks James worries a lot about finances, and Ryan is like, yeah, when we were younger, he would always say that he wants whatever job would pay him the most. And I told him, that I'm not going to sacrifice my relationship with my family or being close to my family so that you can move to wherever NASA is. And his mom says they wanted James to get a nice job and live somewhere like Atlanta. And it irritated her, essentially, that Ryan was putting these stipulations and parameters on her son. She says, if I hadn't moved to make more money, I would do it. And then James kind of jumps in and says, he doesn't really want to work for NASA anymore. That was an old dream, but family is more important to him. And she's like, oh, really? She looked like, who is this guy and what has he done with my son? His mom says, I've been a truck driver across the country his entire life. And I didn't ask him, do you want to be closer to your grandparents? He didn't have that type of choice. And she just doesn't want him to regret settling for less than what he originally wanted. James says, I get it, Mom, but ultimately, family is what's important to me. And he says, yeah, that's something I never really had, so I'm trying to prioritize it now. She then just comes out and asks, okay, so are you going to propose or what? And he still does not have a solid answer. And I'm just like, now, James, you did all that on the last episode about how you always knew she was the one you wanted to marry and all that. And now you sitting here saying you still don't know if you're going to propose after 7 years. Be for real. So Ryan and Trey are on a date. He's trying to find out if he's doing well with getting out of the doghouse. And she's like, you're on the right track. You still got a little way to go, but you're on the right track. They talk about how she still has to figure out what she wants to do for her future, because she doesn't want it to be one-sided where she's just doing whatever Trey wants to do. He says, I'm just trying to plan a future for both of us. But she feels like he's just telling her what he wants. She doesn't really feel like they're making the plans together. Then she starts crying and saying, sometimes she just doesn't feel like she's good enough for him because she doesn't have everything all figured out in her life yet. He acknowledges that sometimes he does try to get her to skip steps just because he's been there and done that. But he does understand how that would make her feel like he's rushing her. So he says he's going to work on it. He says, you are good enough, you're amazing, and that's why he gave her the ultimatum. He's like, I would not even give you the ultimatum if I didn't think you were an amazing woman. So that makes her feel a little bit better. So Roxanne and Antonio are meeting up with her parents. Antonio says there's still some things that need to be answered, and her dad is just like, you're not going to have the answer for everything right now. You have to just let some things work out on their own over time. Everything cannot be answered before you get married. And I'm just like, thank you. At least somebody has some sense in these conversations. Roxanne says, our biggest obstacle is that it's hard for me to trust that he's going to be financially stable. Her dad asks, okay, well, what separates Alex from Antonio? And then he kind of answers his own question. He's like, a job. That's what separates them. It's a job. He says, Roxanne is used to guys throwing money and gifts at her. And so if that's still what she's expecting, Antonio, you got your work cut out for you. That's basically what he tells him. But Roxanne says, I'm not like that anymore. I'm not expecting that. Antonio says, Roxanne is always looking over his shoulder instead of trusting that he can actually run his own business. And she's just like, all my exes were financially stable, but I didn't love them the way that I love Antonio. Her parents tell her, we struggled for 10 years when we first got married, but it was worth it because we loved each other. And this is why I'm just not sure if Roxanne really loves him like that, because the fact that she is this hung up on finances when she has money. Like, it's not like she's broke or she's poor. Like, she has her own money, and yet she's this hung up on, okay, but is he going to match that? Like, is he going to have what I have? It just seems like you don't love him. Like, I'm sorry, that's just what it seems. She's ultimately not willing to go through any difficulties financially with him, even though, again, she's financially stable on her own. Her mom is like, girl, money comes and goes, but you don't find a true love every day. Like, if you find a true love, that is way more valuable than money. And it's like, see, I like her parents. Roxanne's parents make sense. I don't know why their daughter is the way that she is, but it wasn't their fault. Kat and Alex are meeting up with Alex's parents. Kat says, I just feel like he appreciates me way more. And Alex agrees, and he says, I appreciate her kindness and positivity way more after being with Roxanne. And I'm like, yikes. Like, Roxanne, you were so bad that it made him appreciate how nice Kat was. Oh my god. His dad asks Kat, like, what do you see in Alex? And he's like, because I know it's not his looks, because we all know he's ugly. And y'all, I hate when people do that, especially parents. Like, I don't like when people like self-deprecate either, but especially doing it to somebody else. Like, parents don't understand that, like, yeah, that might be like a little joke to you, but those types of things can stick with a child. Like, that could start a person's insecurity right from its inception if you started doing that when he was a child. And he probably has been doing that since he was a child. And I just feel like if anyone should think that you're beautiful, it should be your parents. Like, your parents should never call you ugly. And I was kind of surprised that Kat just let him say it, because I feel like if my husband's parents said that about him right in front of me, I would have been like, he's not ugly, he's beautiful. Like, why would y'all say that? Like, I don't get it. But anyway, I am off on a tangent. Kat says she and Alex balance each other. His dad says Alex always debates with people he dates, but he never really sees Alex and Kat debate much. And Kat is like, we have some debates. They don't. And his mom jumps in and is like, yeah, actually, that's something that Roxanne brought up. Roxanne said she doesn't think that you challenge him enough. And I never really thought about it, but I really do think that he needs somebody that like challenges him and will get up in his face if they need to. Like, someone with just a strong personality. And it got a little awkward after that, because I was like, are you saying that she has a weak personality? That was kind of shady. But Alex kind of jumps in and saves her, and he says, well, Kat is strong, but she's just like a quiet strong, which I've learned is actually a good thing. So I'm like, all right, Alex, that was nice. That was nice of you to defend your girl. They ask, where do they stand on marriage? And Kat says that Alex has very high standards about what he thinks marriage should and has to be like. And sometimes it's just too high. His dad says, yeah, a lot of guys pause because of analysis paralysis. Like, he just named that himself. But at some point, you do have to take that leap of faith. And Kat is like, so Alex, do you think you have analysis paralysis? And he's like, yeah, we wouldn't even be here if I didn't have that. And his dad is like, yeah, some guys stay in that analysis paralysis for years. Like, he could take a long time, years and years. And I'm just like, okay, hold up now. What we're not about to do is make excuses. Because I feel like that's what you're trying to do. Like, he's trying to kind of shoot his son some bail. And I understand. But we're not gonna make excuses for people taking years and years to make up their mind about if they want to be with somebody or not. Like, no. He should know by now. At some point, your son is gonna have to make a decision about if this is the woman that he wants to marry, and he's gonna have to stand on that. So I don't feel like he should be making excuses and giving him a pass. So now it's the final night of the trial marriages. Ryan asks James if he's nervous, and he's like, no, I'm not nervous. I'm just a little nervous about what you're gonna say. I'm waiting on you to catch up. And I'm just like, okay. Let's not forget that she's the one that gave you the ultimatum. Like, I think she's waiting on you to catch up, not the other way around. She asks if he's ready for the next steps. Like, so if I do say yes to the engagement, are you ready for whatever comes after that? And he's like, I mean, I don't have the job that I wanted, but I think that I am ready to start a life with you. He asks if she would be open to them moving in together once they got engaged. And she's like, I just feel like if I do that, you're just going to procrastinate us actually getting married. Like, we'll be engaged, but you're not going to be like rushing to get married because we're already living together. And I'm like, girl, you are absolutely right. Do not move in with that boy, because he's going to prolong it. Like, if y'all move in together, he's going to take another several years before he actually marries you. He denies that this would happen because he never procrastinates with her. And she's like, boy, you procrastinated this whole time. It's been 7 years. Like, what are you talking about? That is the definition of procrastination. Unserious. Raya and Trey are still talking about the moving to the city situation, and Raya says, like, we're just going in circles with this same convo. Like, I'm tired of talking about it. And she says she doesn't want long distance, so she just doesn't know how it would actually work, and she starts crying. She doesn't know if they can be engaged and still be apart for an entire year. And I'm like, why are y'all even talking about this? Like, no, y'all shouldn't be living apart as soon as y'all get engaged. That makes no sense. Like, I could see if one of y'all is in the military or there's some type of job situation, but just because y'all can't agree on city or non-city living, that doesn't make any sense. Especially since y'all have already been living together. Like, get it together. He says he doesn't really know why he doesn't want to move to Atlanta, but he thinks it might have something to do with being away from his family and her not really having a plan at first. And she's like, well, I mean, I have a plan now. And he's like, yeah, you have a plan now. And she says someone just has to sacrifice something. And then she talks to the cameras and she's just like, Trey has to figure out that this is a we thing and not just like a him thing. He hasn't really moved out of his single mentality into like a married mentality. And I agree. She says, I know marriage is hard, but I don't really think that it should be this hard if it's the right person. And I'm like, I kind of agree. Like, he just might not be the one. She says that she's grown so much and she just isn't sure if her growth is pushing her away from him or towards him. Alex and Kat talk about how nervous they are about the big decision. She says, as long as we get engaged, I'll be happy we did this. And I'm just like, you might not be happy then, girl, because I don't know if Alex is going to propose. Roxanne and Antonio talk about how he's been having these bad dreams and he thinks it's because he's super worried that she's going to say no. Valid worries. She asks him what being married to him would be like, and he's like, well, I would be your champion. Like, I would always be there for you and do whatever you needed me to do. He asks why she thinks she would be a good wife, and she's like, I'm considerate. I put people first. Not really sure if I've seen that on this TV show, but okay. He says he would always do the right thing, and she's like, well, what about being a provider? It's like, girl, please let that man live. He asks her what she would say to him if today was like their last time seeing each other, and she didn't have an answer. Child. So now it's the final morning of the trial marriages. They're all like saying their goodbyes, and then the next morning they're showing them like getting dressed and getting ready for the decision. Trey is nervous, and he's realized that he and Raya don't know each other as much as they thought they did. I'm like, all these conversations y'all didn't have, and you didn't know y'all didn't know each other that well. Like, okay. Raya says she's going to follow her head and not her heart because her heart has too many feelings. Trey says they've always struggled with their emotional connection, yet it was so easy with Ryan, so he's just still a little bit confused. Raya says that she's still struggling to move past him catching feelings for Ryan. So they just both kind of sound like they're still unsure. They're both still having doubts. And then they finally meet up, and he's like holding her hands and says, last night I was just thinking and thinking and thinking, and I love you more than anything. And then the episode goes off. So you have to watch the next episode to see what he's gonna do. But luckily for you, I got the recap right here. So sliding into episode 9, he proposes. And Raya is freaking out. She just keeps saying, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Like, he's getting down on one knee, and she's just like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Like, it was so funny. But she does end up saying yes. Trey looks surprised because it definitely sounded like she was going to say no. Like, I think she literally wanted to say no, but I think she decided like at the last second to say yes. But after that, they both talk to the cameras, and they seem really happy and excited, so that's good for them. So next is Ryan and James. Ryan is saying, I've gotten to the point where I can be happy with or without you. It's always bad when a woman says that. James says he is 100% ready to get engaged now, but he just is hoping that she's not going to say no. So they meet up at the spot, and he's like, I can't say I'm in a perfect position to start a life with you. And I'm like, oh man, is he about to not propose? But then he says, but I wouldn't want to handle these problems with anyone else but you, or something like that. And then he gets down on one knee, and of course she says yes. So they're happy. Kat and Alex are next. Kat is hoping that Alex has found more clarity about what he wants. Does not seem like it. Alex is super nervous. He says, I'm still confused, but I know it's time to make a decision. They meet up, and they're both like really nervous and like shaking a little bit. He says, a lot of sweet things about her, and he ends it by saying he wants to go through life with her. And then he gets down on one knee and proposes, and she says yes, and says, he's helped her grow and helped her find herself. So it was a cute moment for them. Next is Antonio and Roxanne. Antonio is super nervous because he is like completely unsure if Roxanne is going to say yes. Roxanne says, she just wants to find happiness and wants Antonio to find the right partner, which sounded like she doesn't think that she's the right partner. She says, I'm just going to go with how I feel in the moment. Like, I don't have my answer right now. I just got to wait to see when it happens. So they get there, and she's already crying. Like, she is so overwhelmed already. He says, he's thankful for her, and he pulls out a note, and he reads this really sweet note to her. And she actually also had a note, and she read her note to him as well. And then he gets down on one knee, and there's just like this long pause. Because I really think that she was deciding as well. But she does end up saying yes to everyone's surprise. And yeah, so all the couples are engaged. Should they be? No, I don't think so. But that's none of my business. So now we can do this reunion real quick, real fast. So now all the 4 couples are there, and we're all kind of like wondering, okay, is Lisa and Brian gonna show up? And they do later. So Vanessa and Nick are like, this season made history because all the couples got engaged for the first time ever on this show. And I'm like, That's not good. Like, they should not have all gotten engaged. Like, the other seasons, the people that didn't need to be engaged didn't get engaged. That did not happen on this one, but I digress. So Vanessa says, I know y'all noticed the empty couch. Well, that's for the couple who left early, Lisa and Brian. It was like, okay, turn it up. So they show like some footage that we did see, plus like some never before seen footage. And apparently some of the cast thought that Lisa and Brian were actually lying about the pregnancy, which we didn't know that. So right after that, Lisa and Brian come out and it's like super awkward. Vanessa says, okay, well, it's been almost a year since we filmed, so what's been going on? What's the updates? And Lisa says, you know, we gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. She says we're both enjoying being parents. We immediately decided to work on us and decide, okay, are we going to be together and be great parents? Or are we going to be separate and be great parents? But either way, we're going to be great parents. And I'm like, period. Brian says the baby changed him instantly. Nick is like, so why do y'all think that some of the cast thought y'all were lying? Like, they're so messy. Nick and Vanessa are so messy. And they're like, I mean, I don't know why they didn't believe us. And then Roxanne, you know, she's like, I'm sorry. Like, she's very apologetic. And pause. Roxanne's face, like, she looks different, right? Like, I don't know if it was like the makeup or like if she just like lost weight or something, but her face looked very, very different. But anyway, Riot is like, well, I just thought it was kind of weird that Lisa called me a Hooters bee on the show, because that's something that we talked about. Like, we kind of bonded over the fact that like I worked at Hooters and she used to work at Hooters. So it was just disrespectful that she like tried to throw it out there as like a shady comment. And Lisa says, I don't care. And she's like, I don't take it back, because that's how she was acting during the process. She didn't act like she was here for the man that she came with, and I was here for my man, and I didn't like that she was trying to push up on him. It seemed like she was just here to play games. And then Antonio jumps in and is like, I mean, we were all here doing the same thing. Everyone had a front runner here. Brian says, well, you know, that's just how she felt then, but that's not really how she feels now. Like, he was trying to help her out. And then Roxanne tries to shoot her some bail as well and says, well, I mean, you were probably very hormonal, right? Like, during that time. And Lisa says, you know, yeah, I was very hormonal. I wasn't really acting like myself, which is what prompted me to take the pregnancy test. And she acknowledges that her being hormonal doesn't excuse her behavior, and she's remorseful about it. Vanessa asks, well, does the ultimatum still stand for Brian? And Lisa says, yeah, like, I'm not gonna be a baby mama forever. Like, he's going to do something. And Brian says, you know, I always wanted to marry her. It's just the timing, but I do see it in our future. And I'm just like, y'all got a whole baby. Like, what are y'all waiting on? Why are you still not ready? Like, oh my gosh, this guy. So then Vanessa and what's the name, Nick, give them baby gifts, and they play the nearly wed game. They like made up a game that's basically the same as the newlywed game. And I'm just gonna talk about like this one little interesting part during this game. So they asked, who are y'all surprised actually said yes to getting engaged? James and Ryan both said Raya and Trey. And basically everyone else says Roxanne, including Roxanne herself. So then Vanessa is like, well, we may as well go ahead and talk to Roxanne and Antonio then, since, you know, we're on them right now. So she's asking them how have things been. Roxanne says it's been a big adjustment getting engaged. She says Antonio is making strides, but he still has a long road ahead of him, because she's still the provider and he's still not on her level yet financially. And it's like, geez, girl, like, do you give him credit for anything? Because I never see it. So Antonio was like, well, I guess I'll just brag on myself since she ain't gonna do it. And he names, you know, all the businesses that he started, and she's just looking at him Like, there's no smiles, there's no support, nothing. Everyone else is like smiling while he's talking about his businesses. Like, you could tell he was proud, and so other people were like happy for him, but she was straight faced the whole time. Trey even like laughs at one point. Like, they kind of show Trey and he like starts laughing, and it's probably because of the way that she was looking. Like, it was just awkward. Then Antonio says, yeah, you know, I've been working with cars, and Roxanne always dreamed of working with cars. Like, she'll tell you, like, she's always dreamed of that. And they're like, well, Roxanne, is that true? And she's like, well, I mean, yeah, like 10 years ago I wanted to work with cars, but not anymore. And it's just like, oh my God, like, she shuts him down on every front. Like, it's so crazy. Then they show like a montage of Roxanne talking about money and working, and I really hope that she paid attention to it. Like, it was so ridiculous how much that she talked about money during this TV show and finances, and like, you are worried about the wrong things, and I hope that this show kind of showed that to you, but I don't think it did. They asked her, you know, if she thinks she has room in her life for her job and marriage, and she says currently no. I'm like, well, at least you're honest. And then Vanessa points out that, you know, you have a ring on every finger except your ring finger. Like, Vanessa is messy. Like, Nick and Vanessa are a messy couple. I see why they're together. Roxanne is like, yeah, I just don't get why I have to wear a ring, especially since he's not wearing one. It just feels possessive. And Antonio says, well, you know, at first it didn't fit. Like, he's always trying to give an excuse. He's like, at first it didn't fit, but, you know, it does hurt that she doesn't wear it, because it seems like she's like ashamed of me or ashamed of our engagement. And she talks about how he got her 2 other rings to wear with the engagement ring, but she still doesn't wear it. And she like pulled out the box that they were in and like showed it, and it was very pretty. And that girl still does not wear it, and she literally did have a ring on like every other finger besides that one. Ryan and James are like, well, maybe you should get him a ring too, so then both of y'all can wear one. And it's like, come on, y'all know that is not the issue. Like, please don't be dense. She doesn't want to wear the ring because she doesn't want to get married. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's not wearing one. That's just her excuse. She does not want to marry that man. Period. She should have just said no to him instead of accepting the ring in the first place. And Alex is like, I mean, I think you have to literally go out of your way to not wear your engagement ring. Like, that's a purposeful choice. And I'm like, thank you, Alex, for being real. Vanessa asks if they would marry each other right now. Antonio, of course, says yes. Of course, Roxanne says absolutely not. Alex and Kat have a wedding date for next year, I believe. Kat says Alex is more ready to settle down than her now. He has like all this baby fever. Roxanne is like, well, that's wild, because when me and Alex were on our dates, we used to always joke about having like 12 kids. Like, why did she even say that? And Kat is like, I mean, okay, girl, we talked about that too, but it's a little bit different now. Like, we're talking about it in a more serious way, not just like joking around about it. And I'm like, there you go, Kat. Stand up for yourself, period. Alex apologizes to Antonio for making it seem like him telling him how Roxanne doesn't respect him made him think that, you know, he had bad intentions or like he wanted Roxanne, because that was not the case. Trey says Alex could have definitely elaborated more, but he doesn't feel like he had any bad intentions. Roxanne brings up how she told Kat that Alex was unsure about her, but Kat didn't take it very well. And Kat is essentially like, I mean, Roxanne, you don't know me. And you came in with a bias towards me and a bias towards me and Alex's relationship. And I didn't feel like you were coming from a good place. Kat says, you know, you were always saying that Alex walks all over me and makes me feel weak. And that literally never happened. Like, it just wasn't true. And Roxanne is like, well, if y'all are so perfect, then why are y'all here? And Kat says, okay, we're not perfect, but I'm just saying, like, the stuff that you were pointing out that were our issues were not our actual issues. And Roxanne is like, well, it seems like you were agreeing with me when I was telling you these things, so I don't know what you mean. Like, I don't know why you're acting like you don't agree now. And Kat says, well, I apologize for being an agreeable listener. That's something that I'm trying to work on. Kat's kind of funny, y'all. Like, I didn't know, but she's kind of funny. Roxanne doesn't feel like the apologies are genuine, and Antonio is just like, I don't hate y'all. Thanks for the apologies. Like, we're good. I'm not gonna lie, I like Antonio. Like, I feel like Antonio was like real chill, unlike Roxanne. Raya and Trey say, they're thinking about having a destination wedding, which is not surprising. They kind of give me that vibe. Trey says things were good at first, but then work life hit them, so that's kind of been an adjustment. But things are definitely much better than what they used to be. Raya says, watching the show back was difficult because James was implying that Raya and Trey shouldn't be together, and he literally pulled Trey to the side and told him, like, she's not ready to be married. Like, that was crazy. James says, he just didn't see much growth in her at the time, and he just didn't feel like she was ready to get married. And I'm just like, and James, you felt like you were ready to get married? Because you're the one that took 7 years. Who child? Ryan says, she was surprised too because their relationship seemed very one-sided. And Trey is like, even I was surprised because Raya never really initiated saying, like, I love you or anything like that. He didn't even really know how she felt about him, to be honest. Raya says, it was really hard to watch Trey and Ryan because I feel like Trey downplayed their relationship. Ryan says, we did have a connection, but she just kept thinking about James in the back of her mind. And so that stopped her from being able to really go all in with Trey. And I honestly feel like if Ryan had been a little bit more open to it, Trey would have went a little bit far with her, because I think he really was like interested in seeing where things could go. But Ryan just kind of kept it at the friendship level. And then Vanessa's messy self asks if either of them called each other after the show, and Ryan's like, no, but I thought about sliding into his DMs. Girl. But she's like, I didn't know how Raya and James would feel about that. And it's like, girl, you know how they would feel about that. That's why you didn't do it. You knew that would not go over well. Trey says, well, that's strange because I never even thought about reaching out to her, and I'm surprised that Ryan even thought about it. He says, I was just kind of focused on me and Raya's relationship, and I knew that if I had done anything like that, like reaching out to Ryan, I would have erased all of our progress, so that wasn't about to happen. Ryan and James are next. They talk about how they already have a wedding date, and she says like he proposed again off the show, and she said that one was like better because it felt more authentic and it was like a surprise. So I thought that was sweet. They are living together now, which I don't think is a good idea, but they're living together now with her siblings, and her parents. And she's just like, it's been an adjustment for him because he was the only child. So now he like gets to see what it's like to have like a big family, to have siblings and all that. But they're doing really well as of right now. And that's basically the end of the show, y'all. So, my final thoughts about this season. It was entertaining. I feel like it was a little more boring probably than season 1. Definitely more boring than the Queer Love season. It was much more exciting, but I would say out of all these couples, I can see probably James and Brian being together, like actually getting married. Raya and Trey, hit or miss. Alex and Kat will probably get married. I do not think that Roxanne and Antonio are going to be married, nor do I think that they should get married. Like, she don't want him. But yeah, that's the end of my Counselor Reacts to the Ultimatum Season 2 series. Hope that you guys enjoyed it. Please give this video a thumbs up, share it, tell your friends about it, all that. And make sure that you subscribe if you haven't already done so. I would love for you to be a part of this family. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.